So let me welcome. Recording has started. Let me welcome all the participants of the meeting, the representatives of environmental and non-environmental NGOs. So we are very grateful that you decided to join us and to listen to very interesting, in my opinion, presentations for today. The aim of the meeting is to present you the flagship projects. So this is basically our proposal based on the latest National Recovery Plan for Poland, or the draft of it that was revealed to the public, which will enable more effective reforms and investments than those provided in the plan. That's what we think, and that we would like to discuss with you. We think that they increase the environmental effect of the activities and designed in the plan, and they may accelerate the green reconstruction of Poland. The proposed actions do not require significant changes to the content of the National Recovery Plan and are consistent with the most important strategic state documents, like energy strategy, for instance. The proposed projects cover the areas of the renovation of buildings, sustainable heating, sustainable transport, zero-emission industry, and increased use of renewable energy. We have two presentations, so we will start for today. We will start with the presentations on the general context of the project, prepared by Mr. Krajowym from Agora Energiewende, which is our partner in this project. And then Piotr Chrzanowski and Wojciech Lewandowski from WiseEuropa will take the floor and introduce you to the details of our proposal. And afterwards, we will invite you to the discussion. So thank you very much for coming once again. And I would like to give the floor to Krajowym from Agora.
Hello, thank you. Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you to WiseEuropa for organizing this event today. As you will see, what the work they have done, it's very interesting and will bring to a very fruitful discussion. I just want to give a very brief presentation about the context in which this work has been done. This is a collaboration we had with WiseEuropa in a bigger project that has started in the middle of the year. And as I will explain, has involved people from, partners from also other countries. And next slide, please. So the context is the following. Since the new targets, the new climate targets have been adopted, it's clear that no more of the same is possible if we want to actually achieve these targets. And therefore, it means that we need to push forward more ambitious policies and investments across several sectors. Here you see a chart from an analysis by Agora on how we can achieve the emission reductions by 2030. And you can see that each bar is a different sector. We need contribution from several sectors, including those like industry that before were somehow ignored because they were considered, hard to abate sectors, where there we couldn't, we would have pushed them down the road. And so you will see in the work done by the team at WiseEuropa that there are proposals touching on the different sectors. And this is a very important contribution. And next slide, please. So we have the recovery and resilience plans done, and several of them approved by the council also over this year. We have the unfortunate situation with Poland. But here I just want to give a more general view on what happened. So at the European level, And we have that the RRF funding will play an important role to accelerate investment and decarbonization, but it's still not enough. And if you see this chart, for instance, that is about the deployment of renewables, you see that the contribution of the recovery and resilience plans to the deployment of renewable power generation is very small. You see the dark blue bars are the installed capacity so far, and the light blue bars is the gap to what we should have by 2030, and the green bars, it just shows the contribution of the RRPs, and you see in this front is very small, so it's quite disappointing, and therefore we need to do much more. Next slide, please. So the project that I was mentioning earlier is has the objective to develop precise and country-specific recommendations for key transformative investments and policy reforms that can be implemented in the short term already, and based on especially on the available funding opportunities on several fronts, both at national level, but also the European level, making use of the not only of the recovery and resilience facility, but also of the new European budget cycle. And so we, in this project, we have collaborated with partners in different countries. And this project is coordinating together with the Sustainable Finance think tank, Climate and Company. And we have engaged with partners in Spain, the University of Comillas, in Italy, ECO, a newly established think tank, with the Technical University of Prague in Czech Republic, and WiseEuropa for Poland, and for France, the work we have done it in-house. So, and you will see now the result of the work done for Poland, and you will see how hopefully the work we have done, and the one of today is the last event presenting the results we already had for Italy, Spain, and the Czech Republic, and this flagship proposal presented already, and you will see how these flagship proposals, the way they are designed, they are intended to be very practical, so really to be a contribution to the debate in a way that we can discuss something very specific that the governments could take over and implement already. So I stop here. There will be a lot to discuss, so I leave the floor to you, and thank you very much.
Yes, thank you, Claudio. Yes.
Thank you, Claudia. Yeah, thank you, Isa. Yes, so once again, welcome to everyone. My name is Wojciech Lewandowski. I'm senior analyst at WiseEuropa, and I'm very happy to join the project and to present our results to you today. So the first information is that we'll send you the slides, so you would be able also to follow up on all the information that we included in them, because yeah, they are quite information loaded. And yeah, so to begin, I would be would like to present our vision of climate neutral Poland in 2050. That even though the government thinks it is impossible, in our opinion, it's better to try and keep the pace of the whole European Union. And as we all know, the recovery, which is now the biggest challenge after COVID pandemic, is one of the opportunities in our view to increase the pace of the transformation and raise the level of ambition. Can I ask for the next slide? Yeah, thank you. So we believe that European Green Deal in this context of recovery can be perceived as a compass, so giving us the directions and objectives for action to increase economic growth and recovery after COVID. And therefore we, at the beginning of the project, we were very much trying to anchor our flagships in the European Green Deal objectives. So our focus was on 4 sectors, as you can see, and these sectors were buildings and heating, transport, industry, and energy. And for each of the sectors, we identified objectives that our flagship would also help to fulfill. So for buildings and heating sector, these objectives are foremost reducing fossil fuel dependency in heating and cooling and increasing energy efficiency. For transport, it's providing smart and connected mobility solutions to enabling zero emission transport. For industry, the biggest challenge, but also the chance, is related to the switch of fuels to low emission technologies. And for the energy, as Claudia presented, the objective is to increase the rollout of renewable sources that would lead to clean and stable energy grid, and also smart, connected, and distributed energy systems. So maybe we'll go to the next slide now. And yes, the second step of our analysis was to adapt those overall Green Deal objectives to our country-specific situation and context. And there we also identified the most pressing challenges at the local level that are related to each sector. So as you can see, for buildings and heating, these challenges are mostly related to the economic condition of heating operators. Also, we identified lack of strategic and complex approach that focus only on singular actions, but not as conducting the transformation of whole system. Then from the plans of government, we see that there is a significant risk that transformation will result in the further fossil fuel lock-in, but by replacing coal with gas, natural gas. And we also identified the discussion is focusing around the issue of energy poverty as an argument to criticize the Commission plans of introducing mini ETS for building and transport system, but in reality, the plans are not very focused on the actions that would lead to the durable effects in combating this energy poverty issue. And we also know that air pollution is a big problem in Poland. This graph is to present the statistic that out of 50 most polluted cities in Europe, 36 of them are located in Poland. So for transport, those challenges are also related to air pollution, but we believe that the most important one is the transport exclusion, which affects almost 14 million people in Poland. We also saw that there is not very well developed intercity connections, especially for middle and small towns, which adds to the problem of transport white spots. We also analyzed and saw that the fleet of public providers of public transport is in poor condition, and it's obsolete, usually old and not technically advanced, which leads to the problem of high emissiveness of public transport in Poland, which in total transport corresponds to almost 25% of total emissions in Poland, and therefore we looked at the way to decrease those emissions. Piotr? Yeah, sure. Thank you. So for the next two sectors, for the industry and for the energy, those challenges are mostly related to the technological aspects, and also to the high emissions of the current Polish energy grid. So to combat industrial emissions and also avoid this fossil fuel lock-in, we proposed the solution to respond to this challenge, but going beyond the limited pool of currently discussed technologies, because the debate mainly focused on hydrogen and CCU or CCS. But in our opinion, the electrification potential in industry is not scrutinized enough. And we also see that the market has something which can be described as a dual structure. So on the one hand, we have big enterprises and parts of global companies who are either foreign owned or with or national champions with state ownership, or dispersed and very big amount of SMEs who have struggles with access to finance and the financial means for transformation efforts. And as you also can see, the problem of big energy consumption, which is currently not clean, is also the big challenge for the. And last but not least, the energy sector main challenges are related to, as has been said, low share of renewables in the grid and in the energy mix. Also, the structure of the market is problem because it blocks the development of other forms of energy that would undermine the current oligopoly of large state-controlled energy companies. And we also, I believe, all know about the problems with regulatory barriers that are severely impacting the deployment of renewable technologies in Poland. So then the next step was to identify and check how government to respond to these challenges. And we did some mapping of the targets that are contained in government strategies. So as you can see, these documents were analyzed by us in quite big extent. There is the cornerstones of our analysis were three horizontal documents. So first, Recovery and Resilience Plan, second, the National Energy and Climate Plan, and Poland Energy Policy until 2040. We also analyzed Polish deal, which is a sort of horizontal document, but as you can also see on the slide, the strategic documents which refer to the plans and actions were also scrutinized. And after this, we thought that maybe the plans that are in the government documents are not the best way to respond to the challenges, and they also do not use the opportunity that is provided by plan and funds on the one hand, but also to align those plans with European Green Deal objectives, and this leads to further regulatory obstacles, but also is risking that the potential will not be used entirely. So, yes. So therefore, we wanted to elaborate the proposition of flagships. So as Maciej in introduction and then Claudio stressed, flagship was for us the initiative that is easy to implement in the relatively short period of time, that is also compatible with and does not need the change of the negotiated version. It is, however, increasing the level of ambition of the RRP, and in order to match it to the targets of the EU, and it will generate something which we call positive spillovers on the market, so create incentives to further invest in private sector or to help the technologies be deployed on a bigger scale. And what's also important, we were elaborating on the initiatives that would fit within the financial limits that are included in Recovery and Resilience Plan. So these were our aims in order to not waste the recovery potential. As you can see, these flagships are related to the four sectors. We divided heating and building renovations into two separate flagships, and yeah, and then we would present them in more depth. So maybe let's now go to the next slide. Yes, so for us, very important was also to adopt the pragmatic approach and to set realistic goals. Yeah, so we looked at the government plans and how these flagships are related to different documents. So maybe we'll just show it to you. I think it's not. Oh, yeah. So as you can see, the links are not only to Recovery and Resilience Plan, but also to other documents, and it is true for all the flagships. And most of them also are linked to some sectoral strategies. So as the result of our ping and linking it, we really ended up with a net of strategic documents, and we also aimed to show how different synergies among those documents can be built by some flagship investments that would present the best practices on the market. So as you can see, those links are really going in all directions. And yes, we also strived to find the synergies with the government plans. So we believe that for all of our proposals, these synergies will be related to the reduced emissions, and increased share of renewable energy sources in energy sector, but also in heating, in transport, and in industry. We also believe that these proposals will support the development and deployment of low emission or even zero emission technology in Poland, and it will foster the creation of market, and will be also related to creating jobs in these sectors, which is really important for the transition objectives. But it will, and in the result, it will lead to the empowering of citizens, like with the concept of their role within the energy communities. But what is also very important for us, that those plans would be in line with the principle of just transition, so they will to solving some pressing social problems that they presented before. So first of all, it would lead to the decreasing the transport exclusion and inequalities in development among various parts of Poland, and also we hope that it would lead to the decrease in energy poverty, and as a result improved social cohesion. Then before I hand over to Piotr, I will do also the added value of the flagships. So for us, as mentioned before, the value added is related to the fact that they are more ambitious than the reforms provided in the Recovery and Resilience Plan, but they don't demand the renegotiation or change of its content, which, as we all know, would lead to the further delay than the current situation. So our objective was within the framework of Recovery and Resilience Plan, but at the same time propose more efficient reforms that would lead to bigger market effects, and also the coordination of efforts in various sectors, and combine actions provided by sectoral strategies of government, as you could see on this network slide. Therefore, we believe that those propositions would strengthen the recovery effect, and so support the plans of government by more smart investments that will result in more spillover effects. And yeah, I now would like to invite you for the journey through the flagships that will be guided by Piotr.
Thank you, Wojciech. Thank you for this introduction. So my part is show you some details about the flagships, and it will be showed as the same presentation part, like investment cost, investment needs, the emission reduction, the key changes required in policies, and potential to increase the RRP ambition. So the first flagship, as Wojciech said, it's connected with residential buildings, and we planned the renovation of 100,000 single-family residential households in Poland. First part is investment needs, and we collected the data, calculate the cost of the flagship based on the typical household in Poland. It's a building with 125 square meters. It's statistical data. The cost of modernization is connected with a long-term renovation strategy, and it's 24,000 euro per one household. And the whole flagship cost to almost 2.5 billion euro. In the RRP, the budget for replacement of inefficient heat source and improvement of energy efficiency is 3.2 billion euro. So our flagship is only 38% of those allocation, and we propose to create a dedicated budget for that, for subsidy scheme, which is co-financing up to 50% of cost of renovation. And the emissions, the whole realization of whole flagship can reduce 900,000 tons of CO2 for a year in the current electricity system. And when it will be decarbonized,
I'm not reacting anyway.
Okay. And reduction after the decarbonization will be higher, and it will be more than 1 million tons CO2 annually. And the key changes required, what we need to change in the policies and the funding schemes to implement this flagship is shown in the slides. And the first part is, I would like to start with the orange frame, upper right corner. What we understand that as a deep renovation. So we think it's a renovation of buildings which allows to reduce energy by 70% and install a heat pump after renovation in the building. And what's important there is that those buildings without the need of any changes and modernization can be as zero carbon ready buildings after the decarbonization of the grids, and or use the renewables for generate electricity to heat pumps. And what we propose here is a few changes in one of the biggest support program in Poland. So it's called Clean Air Program. We propose the accelerating of the shift from coal in buildings to and deep renovation promotion in Poland. Create dedicated budget for a deep renovation, as I said in the previous slide, is 1.2 billion euro. And the next change is increase the total cost of the renovation in this program. Now it's 50,000 Polish zloty, and we propose to increase it to 125,000 and increase opportunities to people which have higher incomes than 100 zlotys per year to make it more to make those deep renovation easier and possible to do with that program. And how to increase the RRP ambition is that what I said previously, it's create a dedicated budget for nearly zero buildings in the program, and what's one of the investment part of RRP. As I said before, it's a few changes in the clean air program that will be capex cap, annual income cap, and higher subsidies for installations, and that's our proposition for the first flagship. If you have any question, I think you could ask now or at the end of the presentation. So the next part, the next flagship is district heating, and we propose to modernization of the 5 small or medium-sized district heating systems in a small or medium town. The investment costs will depend on the size of the system and the energy sources that we will invest in those systems. The average cost of the 10 to 15 megawatts coal-based system, it's between 15 and 30 million euro. So the total cost of the flagship is 120 million euro. And the budget for the investment in the heat sources in the heating system in RRP is 300 million euro. So our proposition, our flagship, is only 20% of the RRP allocation. We think that this implementation of this flagship may be a trigger to development of the energy efficient and zero emission district heating system in Poland. The reduction of the annual emission of CO2 is 20,000 tons of CO2. But it's a good point to providing the service on ensuring thermal comfort in buildings and make some investment in the renovation and the demand side investment made by energy companies. Key changes required in this flagship. So to introduce this flagship, we need some new tariffs and business model, which can ensure thermal comfort and investment in the innovative supply side measures and energy demand reductions, like low temperature heat network or deep renovation in the customer buildings. And the next idea is create a clear decarbonization roadmap for district heating system, which will be in the line with EU climate targets like Fit for 55 package or the long-term renovation, building renovation strategy. And the last part of this flagship is how to increase RRP's ambitions. So we propose to create a dedicated budget for complex investments in district heating system, enabling to deployment of the low temperature heating system. And the next part is a link between two big public scheme of financing from district heating. So it's powiat heating and clean powiat heating and clean air program. So create the budget for district heating modernization and the renovation and deep renovation of the buildings in the connected with this system. And one of the reforms that we propose to change is let the district heating company improve energy efficiency in their customers' buildings and connected them to the heat network. The third flagship is connected with the road transport. So we propose to buy 100 zero-emission coaches for intercity transport. As you can see in this picture on the right side, there is a big reduction of the demand for intercity transport in Poland and the reduction of the number of the buses. So it's increased the transport exclusion, and so it's a big problem in Poland. We have our calculation in two scenarios. So it's a low capex scenario. It's connected with the number of the vehicles in 2020. So we will, if we replace the whole fleet replaced by electric buses, or the cost will be more than 4.5 billion euro for that buses. And if we make our ambitions bigger and back to the number of vehicles from the level of 2010 and replace the fleet in electric and hydrogen buses, the total cost will be something about 6.6 billion euro for replace the fleet of the coaches in Poland. The budget from the investment in zero and low public transport in RRP is 1.1 billion euro, and our flagship, depending on the scenario, is about 4 to 5% of those allocation. The emission reduction, depending on the decarbonization scenario and the scenario of replacing the fleet, depends on some information. So it's from almost 2,000 tons of CO2 annually for 830,000 tons of CO2 in the decarbonization scenario. Key changes that we proposed in the key changes required in the policies is create a public-private partnership focused on the intercity zero emission buses. It will increase the attractiveness of the investment from the private investor, and we propose to create or increase the use of the two-oriented support. So it's capex-oriented support. It's create a dedicated budget in green public transport program to only zero emission intercity coaches. And OpEx-oriented support is support from the public bus transport development fund, which need to involve the long-term contracts and higher subsidies for every passenger kilometers of the coaches. So how to increase RRP ambition is create a dedicated budget for purchasing zero emission intercity coaches with the infrastructure. And what's very important in our opinion is to create the strategies for a switch to zero emission public transport in intercity transport. It's something that Poland don't have yet, so it's very important to make some plans in long-term strategy. The fourth is a flagship connected with industry. Is fuel to electricity switch at 13 industrial plants. And when we prepare this flagship, some studies said that it's possible to decarbonize the industry based on the low and medium temperature processes using well-known and mature technologies like heat pumps, chillers, electric boilers. So those sectors, as you see on the right side on the picture, is food, wood, and textiles industry. Average size of the industrial installation in a SME is 300 kilowatts, which can cost 270,000 euro. So the budget from the RRP for energy efficiency and renewable energy in the enterprises is 162 million. Our proposal is only 2.5% of those allocation. We propose to create a dedicated budget under the RRP for industrial plants for decarbonizing them, and as it will assume a subsidy up to 50% of the total cost of investment. And we think that this flagship is very important to prepare industrial companies for changes which will come in the second half of the 2020s and in 2030s. The reduction of emission annually is 22,000 tons CO2 per year. What is key changes required in the policy? It's create a strategy for industrial sector connected with the decarbonization goals, and pilot financial programs for small and medium enterprises, and it will be for electrification of the industry sectors. And we think that one of the most potential sectoral focus should be on the food industry. And those are and the proposal to increase RRP ambition is to create a dedicated budget for electrification of SME industry plants. And it's the last flagship. It's energy communities. So we want to create 30 smart energy communities and the investment needs will depend on the size and the types of energy sources in that community. The average community system is 2.4 megawatt system based on wind and solar, which can cost 3 million euro. So we propose to create a public dedicated budget under RRP to subsidy creating energy communities, assuming co-financing up to 35% of the costs, and it require 32 million euro public money for implementation of the flagship. And in the RRP, the budget for improving condition of for the development of renewable energy sources is 97 million. So our proposition is only 33% of this allocation. The flagship can be a trigger for faster switch for zero-emission electricity production, and annual CO2 reduction is 92,000 tons of CO2. What is the key changes required for the implementation of the flagship is implementation of the flexible dynamic tariffs and liberalization of the energy market, and identification of the regulatory barriers and implementation of European directives like RED and energy market regulation in Poland. And the proposal how to increase the RRP ambition is a better financial scheme to modernization of grids, to implementation of renewables, especially for energy cooperatives and communities. And it will be all for me. And Wojtek, the floor is yours again.
Yeah, thank you very much, Piotr. So as you could see, each of the flagship is a little bit different in terms of spillover effects. Some of them are more targeted in triggering the market, like the district heating of 4th generation, and implementing those solutions into the Polish local context. Some of them are more to the lowest hanging fruits, like the industrial one. So we focus on those sectors that are the first to abate, and also include the financial schemes for SMEs, which are sometimes not much supported in their transformation efforts. And but there are some spillover, like positive effects of that are common for all the flagships. And for those we perceive foremost the improvement of quality of life, especially in small and medium sized cities, where they are in trouble situations very frequently. We also believe that the implementation of this flag would lead in midterm, but also in longer term, to positive social effects, such as combating the transport exclusion and energy poverty, as we said at the beginning. What is also really important for us is the fact that by all the flagships, we aim for zero emission technologies and avoid carbon lock-in. So they are more efficient in the longer term, and as was the example with the net zero ready building, may become zero emission once the problem with energy grid in Poland is sort and emissiveness of this power generation is sorted. So they will not demand additional investments in the future, or not at such a big scale as going from coal to gas, for example. And we also believe that these actions would really step up the pace of decarbonization in all of these four sectors, which is really important, taking into consideration increased level of ambition of the European Union as a whole, but also the scale of the challenge that is faced by Poland. We also believe that as was said at the beginning, but now you can also visualize it with an example, that these flagships will help to incentivize market for deployment of the zero emission technologies, and involve private sector actors to also participate in this. So we would like the flagships to be the initiator of changes, not the final stop of them. And but not least, we believe that those changes, especially in the energy market, would lead to the increased participation of citizens in the generating of power, but also coordinating their efforts, which would avoid the with, for example, the PV deployment at big scale without coordination, which leads to the problems with transmission networks. So going to the last slide of our today presentation, we would very much like to stress that our ambition at the beginning of the process was make the resilience and recovery plan really robust document that could that would not result in another missed opportunity for Poland to reap all the benefits that may be presented by this. So we also would like to invite you to join us in these efforts, and to share your ideas in today's discussion, more broadly to monitor strictly the situation surrounding the RRP and how it's implemented, and if you find those flagships also convincing, maybe we could also make such a common lobbying group for implementation of them. So the RRP was the center of our thoughts, but with those flagships, we believe that it's just one of the examples how to make it more robust and provide bigger effects than the current government plans. So to use the common cited phrase, we won't let good crisis go to fiasco for another time. And by this, I would very much like to thank you for your attention and invite you to contact with us if you feel the need for it. And we'll, at the beginning, we will share the presentation with you, but now we invite you for the discussion. So if you have any questions for us, please just ask them. I don't know, is that by raising hand or just
Yes,
simply,
please, if you want to ask the question, please raise your hand and you can unmute yourself. Yes, we have the first question. Michelle?
Hi, thanks a lot for the presentation. I think it's really good, and I like how you approached it in that you took what is in the recovery plan, which, as we all know, is still on hold for Poland. No, it's one of the few countries where it's not yet adopted. I mean, I assume that basically it's pretty much settled. It's just, you know, it's not the recovery plan, it's content probably which is being discussed, but rather bigger issues around the rule of law. But still, I like the approach that you did in that you took what they budgeted and what priorities they took, and then you basically looked how can we make this even more ambitious. So just one question I would have for understanding. To what extent are those budgets that you took as reference points, for example, for building renovation, and then you said, I want to earmark here for much more ambition instead of 30%, which is what they request in the commission, I want to do nearly zero. To what extent are these amounts already allocated? So would it need to be reallocated, or is it at this point in the recovery plan just not clear what exactly will be funded, and basically you are proposing an idea how to best make use of it? So does it have to be, so basically just to understand political feasibility, does something else need to be dropped, or is it really just a very clever idea to increase ambition? Thank you.
Piotr, would you like to answer this question?
We want to create a dedicated budget in the RRP. So it's as you can see in the slide, it's a budget for RRPs B112. It's for renovation of the building is 3 billion euro, and our budget, so this 1.2 billion euro is in that budget proposed in the RRP. So it's only increase the ambition, not we don't need to create and get money for other institution, or it's all in this document.
Yes, just to.
And so basically, the Polish have not yet spelled out how they want to. They just said we want to spend 3.2 billion on building renovation, and you say, okay, we agree, but make 1/3 of it earmarked for a very high ambition, right?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Yes, that was exactly our ambition in this project, to take what's in RRP and is not clearly determined into which subsidy scheme it will go and to what will be the conditions for it. So to shape one of the investments, for example, under RRP according to our idea. And I forgot to tell before, but we will also address the policymakers with these proposals by bilateral say interviews, but to present it to them, and therefore we also like to address it directly with the public administration, how those ambitions that are already in RRP can be raised.
Okay, thank you. And we have a second question from Andrzej Hasenberg.
I have no question. May I comments, or is not the time for comments yet?
It is the perfect time for comments.
Okay. Well, first of all, I want to
comments are welcome.
Thank you very much for this deep presentation about RRP. I want to start with something that was said by a previous person who asked the questions. The Poland is not ready with the document yet because it's in the hands of European Commission, but from political reasons, probably they will be late. I hope so, not be closed down, but will be open, but in the future. The problem is that it's a very short time to spend this money. Because if I remember, it's year 2026. My question is we are ready to make these changes based on the organization system, institutional system in Poland, and to spend this money on this flagship direction that was presented by you. I'm very afraid that we have no time and we have no institutional capacity to do that. This is my first comment. Second comment is related that it's quite a lot of about, this flagship, but from my understanding, it's less to the game changers. Some of this flagship is going in that direction that it's better than today, but it not means that we are on the way to year 2050 to be a zero emission or net emission. I'm very sad about that. The Poland is not ready with this long-term strategy for year 2050, and I know that WiseEuropa done quite a lot of work, but this work is not approved by the government from political reason, not from the substance reason. Because if we have a whole pictures up to year 2050, it will be much easier to find the way what is really needed today after the year 2030, after the year 2040. What I'll give the example about these game changers. We're talking about switch from the coal to gas, and I think it is the dead-end street, because we can decrease the emission, but still the emission will be in year 2030, and there will be quite new investments, and will be difficulty to switch from this gas to, for example, the green hydrogen. And I think that this is the element that is not taken into account, but we needed to do that. Other element is about the transport. If we will still produce the electricity based of the coal, that if we change the fleet or we expand the fleet for public transport, for the coaches, for the buses, based of the electricity, the emissions still be there. That's, I think it's another element which is not taken into account. And I think that this game changer can be that we not build the system like before on the base of the electric buses, by to switch for the different concept. I think it's called mobility as a service, that the client will be choose the solution, but not the operator will be offer the clients the solution. I think it's completely different concept, and I think it's, if this concept will be in place, I think that the situation will be looks much more different. Another element is that I'm very happy that you want to make this 30 commune base of something they when the partly energy independent. But I think 30 commune it's a minimum, it's a very little. We have a 250. And I think we need necessary to give the floor for the others, to give them possibility to this change, to build the energy security from the bottom to the top. And I think it's the time to do that, to use this money. Other element, I am very happy that you see the energy efficiency, because in many reports and the governmental reports as well, energy efficiency is the last element. I think the energy efficiency needs to be first element. If we more spend for energy efficiency, we need less, power capacity. We talk about the power capacity. Year 2050, it is, big question mark. What's happening? But if we spend quite a lot of energy efficiency, that means that our capacity in the future not need so more investments. And I think it's necessary in this context that you presented, which is much better than is the governmental one, but I think it's not going so far like we needed to go. It's the problem of the barriers. We have a lot of barriers to implement what was presented. And I think it would be necessary to make this analysis how we can avoid these barriers or how we minimize these barriers. That summarize, I think that flagship is okay, but I think we need to find something that is a really game changers, and we need to spend the money from RRP to start this really game changer, because otherwise we will wake up in year 2030, it will be a little better, but a lot will be ahead of us, but the money would be spent, and some part of the money, I think, will be spent on the not necessary directions. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this comment. Maybe just to quickly refer to what did you say. So, as I said before, we wanted to stay pragmatic and realistic. So we didn't want to overpromise like 1 million electric cars in 5 years, for example, obviously, but to find solutions that would be possible to implement in this relatively short period of time that you mentioned, to spend the money allocated to recovery and resilience plan. So this was the reason sometimes maybe we're not providing very ambitious propositions, but we wanted them also to be smart. So by implementing them, we would enable new technologies to develop and to be deployed, or to go into the direction that the public money could play as a additional factor for private money. Yes, so this was our thinking behind those propositions, and I agree with you that there's the challenge is so big that there are very like the action that we need to take is really important to be to avoid stranded assets and to avoid dead-end streets at this moment. So this very much address with policymakers when we talk to them. So these money from recovery and resilience plan would be spent wisely and also with a good effect for the market. Piotr, if you want to add something, just go. Okay, so is there anyone who would like also to ask a question or to make a comment? Yes?
A reaction to what you said. I understand your point of view in some sense, but I think we are losing the opportunity to make changes, spending part of this money for the dead-end street. and you are too pragmatic, less ambitious. I am more ambitious, but maybe less pragmatic. Without the vision, without the utopian way of thinking, we are not making real changes and to have a chance to achieve the climate neutrality in year 2050 is too late. We need to be year 2040. If we don't want to make this, some people call climate catastrophe, and I think it's right that we will be paying much more going in this direction that you present than be more ambitious and pay less as a society economy in the future. I understand they want to make the document better or better use of this money, and I agree that this, what you said, will achieve this, but I think we need to go far away. And maybe it will be necessary to say, okay, it is a minimum, but if we want to be more ambitious, we can do more, and to make this list, what does mean more? That's my point of view. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. I have a lot of respect for your utopian way or approach, and really also personally believe that both ways of action are necessary to achieve the goals. So so thank you very much for your comments. Yeah, and I also invite others who are among participants to take floor and share thoughts and also comments to our flagships, more specific or more general. Yeah, please.
Yes, Robert Kliński.
Yes, thank you from my side for your great presentation. I was wondering on the role of the development of the grid infrastructure in first place. As you said in your presentation, that for the deployment of the PV systems on the bigger scale, the grid optimization will play a certain role. Do you know maybe what would be the first or the main target now for the first steps in order to support the deployment?
Yes, Piotr, would you like to react to the question?
Piotr, can you unmute?
Yeah, but can you could you repeat the question? Because I was looking at something presentation. I will show you.
Yes, of course. I was just wondering, you said that to support the development of the PV systems and in the same time to decrease the carbon emissions, stable development of the energy grids will play an important role. So I was just wondering, what are the next steps for this to happen? So what target investments could support this development?
So we don't show in this presentation, this project, the cost of the investment cost on the grids, but it's connected with this energy communities flagship. So if we have 3 million euro per investment cost per one system, it's based on the some other project, other investments from other projects. So it's connected with the development and improve the efficiency of grids. So it's important to invest in grids, but we don't have on this project some information like that. How much money we should spend on it. So it's only in Poland we should modernize this whole grid. So it's more important to locally to make it better and more efficient.
So if I understand correctly, the focus is on connecting municipalities and increasing the grid as it is, then increasing the flexibility in the first place.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Those communities would rather be the complementary measure to the current existing power generation structure in Poland than like the way to modernize the whole networks. I would say so. In this project, we were focusing more on this aspect than on the reform of the whole energy generating and distributing and transporting system. So yeah, I hope that it answers your question. But in our other publications, we have also more sectoral focus on energy. So I would invite you to check on our website, and I believe the publications that are more related to energy sector as such.
Okay, thank you very much for this insight. If I may, I would also like to ask the next question to the industry flagship, because I actually couldn't see any specific goals for the industry. Do you maybe know which sectors of the industry would be mainly focused in the RRP investment plans?
From my knowledge, there is no specific allocation for industry sectors in RRP, but Piotr, yeah, you...
Correct. We only have the budget from RRP to improve the efficiency and change the heat sources, but RRP didn't tell which sectors. As you can see in our presentation, we propose to electrify the food, wood, and textile industries because it can be done with our state major technologies like heat pump. So it's a low temperature process and it will be easier. And this is only our proposition. Not in RRP. There is no information about that.
Okay, thank you very much.
Or only on RRP, which we know because it's we know the project from May, I guess. So we don't know the last the final project of RRP. So it's top secret and only sent to European Commission. So maybe on this final project it will be, but I don't know.
Yes, we were just going from the assumption that this situation with withholding and delaying the payment of RRP money will be somehow sorted, and when it's sorted, then to have better, so not to wait with passively, let's say, for the development of the things beyond our control, but to provide framework for using the money once they are green lighted from the Commission and the Council.
Thank you very much. Do you have any other questions or comments? If not, Wojtek, I don't know, would you like to make some last comments? And I also would like to add that we will send the presentation to all participants, and it will also publish on our website. Thank you, and Wojtek.
Yes, thank you. So I would very much also like to thank everyone for their attention and participation in. So as we could see during the discussion, the scale of the challenge that Poland faces is really big. So the RRP will play a very big role in financing the transformation and transition to more less emissive technologies. And I guess that the avoidance of dead-end streets and stranded assets is really important in this context. So flagships are our proposition, how to avoid these risks and how to make this money work for better. So we are just very much looking forward to further development around RRP and how this now this project used to increase the ambition of the government plans, which will, as I said, address in the interviews with policymakers, but also we think that there is a good chance to, by this occasion, when RRP is finally published, for other institutions to publish their views on RRP and how it can be best spent in order to make it not another missed opportunity, as Mr. Kassenberg said, but work for the good of our economy, of the society, and to increase the pace of transition. So yes, thank you very much, and see you soon, and have a good Christmas and Happy New Year.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very much. And
Thank you.
good Christmas and a Happy New Year for everybody.
Thank you.
Happy New Year as well.
Thanks
Bye.
a lot. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Thank you.